All right, teammates. We are back once again. If this is your first time listening to the Move Swiftly podcast, welcome to the show. Great to have you. Welcome, in fact, to the number one show on innovative teamwork. To my regular listeners, you already know how we get down here, man. You hit that play button, which means that there's somebody or something about to happen in your life that's going to make it better, going to change for the better. I've had quite a few people in here who run their own businesses, who've giving you incredible financial advice. And today is no different. Founder of Lecounte Financial, Mr. Cornelius Lecounte, is here, who I actually met. And this is what I mean when I say always be connecting. I know you regular listeners are maybe tired of hearing me say that, but I'm never going to get tired of saying it. ABC, always be connecting. It was a Saturday and I was in an event for the school I teach at, and he happened to be there. And I was letting him know, hey, look, man, it's that time where I'm growing. I'm in my mid 30s now. I want to make sure I'm putting my financials in the right place and be connected. And now, again, we've been working with him for about 2 months now, and now he's on the show. So, Cornelius, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to have you. And I think it's so very important that we start off with the kind of, I guess, kind of just take us back a little bit in terms of where your mindset was. Because you and I know in some of the communities that we've discussed in the past, our financial literacy isn't necessarily high. You know, the financial literacy definitely isn't something that's taught in school, something that if you really focus up, you got to learn on your own. So kind of walk us through a little bit about your background and what drew you into the world of financial services.
Okay, cool. Great question. So, what drew me into the world of financial services is actually a weird story. I was driving home from work. Me and my wife had young children. I was working two jobs and I was working overnight. And as I was driving home, I fell asleep at the wheel and don't know how I got home. I only remember waking up to turn to get home. That's how exhausted I was.
Oh my
And
God.
my wife was pregnant with our youngest child, who's now 17. And I said to myself, man, what would have happened if I didn't come home that night? And
Mm.
so I started looking for life insurance. I had no life insurance.
Oh.
So that drove me to start looking for life insurance. And then the company that I met that sold me the policy started talking to me about college funds, stocks, bonds, mutual funds.
Hmm.
And so when that night was over, I had college accounts for all of my kids. I had Roth IRAs for me and my wife. And that started me on my journey because I was like, man, they showed me all these numbers that, hey, if you're investing this a month, this is what you can have at the end. And I
Hmm.
was like, man, I only put in so much. But because of understanding the market, that money grew much more than what I put in.
Hmm.
And that's what got me started on my journey to helping people the way I was helped.
So when you go back to that night where you fell asleep on the wheel, can and the reason I'm asking this is because there can be some listeners in that are still stuck in that place where they're just getting through the moment. They don't know exactly what can happen. Again, you're high risk in a very high risk situation where you got mouths to feed, you got a family to provide for, and all that. When it comes to the way you were thinking before that night, what would you say were probably the biggest mistakes that you weren't seeing now that you have kind of the financial education that you have now? What were some of your blinders when you were like going back and you kind of think back to that time?
Too many times we live for the moment
Hmm.
and not for the moment we want to build to.
Hmm.
Okay. So when you're in that moment, like you've got young kids, you're in the rat race and you're thinking about how do I pay the bills today?
Yeah.
And I often tell this joke now that I saw the meme where on payday, there's this person getting beat up by all of their bills. The bills are robbing them. All right.
I'm
And
picturing it. Yes. I'm definitely picturing it.
so
Because
really,
that, I mean, when you get into it, that's it. I mean, and it may not be, it will feel like you're getting your ass kicked because you got kids, you got school, you got bills. Then again, if you're a man, you got your spouse to take care of, you got to eat so many things. And then that check before you look at it is like, God, another 2 weeks, I gotta figure that shit out again.
and so the biggest mistake we make is one thing I ask my clients every appointment now is what's your most important bill? And
Right.
most people will say their rent or their mortgage or their car payment. And I tell them, no, it's you. You have to every paycheck pay yourself as if you a bill. And yeah, it might hurt, but you're paying yourself so down the road you actually have something because we all know the expression you got to rob Peter to pay Paul.
Right.
Because you've never paid yourself, now you've got to rob one bill to pay another bill.
Hmm.
And now the next couple of months, all your bills are behind because you had one incident.
Hmm.
right? So
Yeah.
it's about making the sacrifice to pay yourself first.
Right.
And having vision. A lot of us, when we're young, we get those big income tax returns.
Hmm.
Okay. What do we do with those?
Right.
Right. You know, most things that get flat screen TVs and cars are the biggest things that tend to get purchased during tax season.
Right.
But you know, we can allocate some of that money other places to begin a mindset of building wealth.
Yeah, well, that I'm glad you brought up those specific products because you're right. When you're young, you do have this notion that you have to have a flat screen TV. You do have this notion that you have to have a certain car that you live. There's kind of a direction you're pointed in which you're living above your means. And I teach at a school with young kids, and actually, it was this book. I'll show you now. I'll give you an example. It was this book I wrote named The Six Figure Athlete. And one of the kids saw it and goes, "Oh, well, if you're making six figures, Mr. Asman, what are you doing teaching here? Or what are you doing?" And it showed, and again, he's a young kid, fourth grade or whatever, but it showed a lack of financial literacy. And we put a number on it as opposed to saying, hey, maybe he has it invested somewhere, and maybe the money is going and it's coming back, or maybe I'm making a certain amount of sales on this and that's going here. So when it comes to actually teaching this mindset to young people who are so blinded to even understanding that, look, you have to put some money in to make some money back, where's the first place you start? Please, like, let us know, because you're never too young to start this kind of thinking. And that's what I've had to actually learn. And actually, speaking of folks like you and some of the other folks that have been on the show, I've learned that myself, is that you're never too young to start learning this process.
Cool, great question. So what I tend to do, I'll start with stocks and things that they like. They like the Nikes, right? So I
Yeah.
ask the question: would you like to have Nikes, or would you like to have Nike stocks? $300 for Nike shoes, or $300 in Nike stocks? Which one would you like to have? And you
Hmm.
know, most of them will say the Nike shoes, and I
Yeah.
will say, okay. So now let's go back. Let's buy your $300 Nikes, and we're going to buy $300 in Nike stocks. Now, over 10 years, look at how much the Nike stock has grown
Hmm.
versus the Nike shoes, which you've probably worn out. You know, you're wearing them out. Now, I do know Nikes now, you got the collectors and they're going up in value, things like that. But I'm just keeping it very simple. You
Hmm.
know, back to McDonald's. Would you rather go get the cheeseburger, or would you rather have McDonald's stock? And just trying to get them to have a vision of, if you put the $5 away today,
Hmm.
it can be $30 later, and you did not have to work for it.
Yeah.
The key to getting free is having money that you don't have to work for.
Hmm.
And
Now,
so,
you had actually, and I am gonna admit this out on the show, on my show, and the show, because you listeners have been with me for 4 or 5 years now, and you know how much I've grown, and you know how much I've put into making this show the number one podcast on innovative teamwork. And I'll be 100% honest with you and with everyone listening, is you had to actually teach me exactly what a stock is. I remember having that conversation with you. I was in Miami actually at a Starbucks, and this was our first time meeting, and you asked me, what is a stock? Now, I thought I knew a lot about business, but then I'm like, wait a minute, I don't know if I can necessarily define it. I've heard the word, but you actually defined it for me. So the reason I'm bringing that up is I'd love for you to kind of define that for anybody that may be listening that may have the same reaction I had, where it's like, wait a minute, I don't know what that means. I don't know what a stock means. So go ahead.
okay, so basically, a stock is you're buying ownership in a company. If you have one share of Nike, you
Hmm.
might be 0.000000045 owner of Nike, but you're basically buying ownership in companies when you buy the shares.
Hmm.
And when the company's doing well, those shares go up in value, your money goes up. So now you have to ask yourself the question of, are you investing in companies that you think will be here the next 10, 20, 30 years and be profitable? If
Hmm.
you're doing that, then you know those are stocks that can be good for you to buy. Now, I'm not endorsing Nike. That's just an example that was just put out there.
Right. It's mentioned a lot here over here in the move swiftly world. As a sports guy myself, I talk about Nike quite a bit. So it's not uncommon for the audience to hear about Phil Knight and Under Armour and the whole thing, because I talk about it so much. So the question I do have for you though is, for anybody that may be listening, and this is actually something I'm guilty of myself as well, is when you're owning a business and you're so locked into what it is you're doing. Like with me, I have to put out a lot of different material every day and teach and all that, to the point where I never really actually had time to go back and learn exactly what stocks are. when you start to talk to them and ask them about how they make their investments or the decisions that they're going to make with their company, is it going to be something that is going to go public one day? How do you grow it? How do you build it? All of these things, and I'm bringing all this up because this was stuff I asked him, months ago when we first started chatting. How do you advise those folks who are entrepreneurs and want to run their own business versus, all right, should it go public? What's the direction? What sort of things do you advise them to do?
Well, the number one thing I always tell people is you have to plan your exit strategy because nobody wants to work forever.
Amen to that. Yeah,
All right.
this is
So,
raw. This is exactly what you told me, guys. So I'm glad you brought that. Your exit strategy. Yes, sir. Yes,
right.
sir.
And so now we got to project into the future. Do
Hmm.
you want to run this for 30 years? Do you want to run it for 20 years? So
Right.
now that we know what exit strategy we're looking for now, how much money do you need to make a year to walk away?
Yeah.
So now we know, say if you tell me you want 50 grand a year and
Hmm.
retire. Well, I already know based on the rules of how you should retire, we need to put you on a path to save $1 million.
Hmm.
Because at $1 million, you can take a salary of 50,000 for the rest of your life and never run out of money.
Hmm.
Okay. So that's where I'll start there. What does the end look like? And
Right.
then we start from the end and we come back to the beginning and we start building towards the end. As
Right.
far as wanting to go public and things like that, that's something that you'll have to have with the other people that maybe like you're trying to bring in shareholders. How big are you trying to get? Do
Hmm.
you need the money? Do you need to give up equity to move further along in your business? So that's a much more in-depth conversation that just needs to be
Hmm.
had. But that's my biggest piece. When it comes to investing, I also tell people, listen, you don't need to chase the stock of the month,
Hmm.
right? What for the average person, a mutual fund and ETF is the best thing to do because you're going to get what we call diversification. You're going to get about 100 different companies in your one investment, right?
Hmm. Right.
So that's typically the best place to be for the average investor.
So walk us through exactly what you mean when you say mutual funds, because there's a lot of different things that come up when you hear the term mutual funds, and maybe you don't know where to put your money in. Like I was telling you actually before, is I see what AI is doing, being that I'm not much of an expert when it comes to this. I just know what is going to be needed in the future, so I kind of made my decisions based on that. So when we're talking mutual funds, what exactly do you mean when you say that?
Great question. So a mutual fund, how I like to explain is I want you to picture a mall, right? And now you have all these different stores that are in the mall. So a mutual fund is a mall of stocks. You put your money in the mall and you're now getting stocks of all the stores that are in the mall.
Mm-hmm.
So now if one store in the mall goes out of business, does the mall shut down?
It does not.
It does not. And what will the mall do to that spot the store was in?
Just keep it replaced. Just
They'll
replace it.
replace it with something else. So that's why a mutual fund, for the most part, is best for the average investor
Mhm.
because, hey, clothing might be down, but jewelry and electronics might be up. And the
Ah,
overall performance of the mall is what grows your money,
yeah.
not one individual stock.
Yes.
And a
Very.
lot of times people get caught up in trying to chase the stock of the month,
Yeah.
but it's about if you're not a flipper, if you're not a day trader, investing is really about time and consistency, finding good investments,
Hmm.
time and consistency. And honestly, what I mostly get paid for is helping people control their emotions.
Yeah.
Because the news will say, oh, the market's going down, and people will look at their account and say, oh, the market is down. I need to pull all of my money out.
Hmm.
But that's the wrong way to look at it,
Hmm.
right? When you go shopping, would you like to buy on sale or would you like to buy at regular price?
Yeah, and well, on that point, I'm glad you're bringing this up because you said the average investor, and like I had mentioned before, it's hard to learn this stuff because you have to learn it on your own. It's not taught in school. So when I first started learning about investing, I know the name Warren Buffett. It's like I
Mhm.
had to learn quickly. I'm not Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett has a specific strategy, and Warren Buffett is not you. The majority of you guys who are listening are not Warren Buffett, right? And I had to learn, like you said, the average investor is going to do certain things. So I thought back to some of the things that my mother said, my mother showed me. And we go to the grocery store, Cornelius. Every time we went to the grocery store, she would not buy one thing that was not on sale. everything. All I would spend hours. If it's not on sale, I'm not buying it. And if she's listening now, she knows exactly what I mean. When me and my sister being there, so I learned a lot of what you said when it comes to making sure if you're going to be an average investor and maybe invest, whatever you may have available, make sure you're doing it the right way. So to answer the question, yes, everything for me has to be on sale.
Right. And so what happens is when the stock market is down,
Mm-hmm.
all that means is that the stock market is on sale. So you need to continue investing because the stock that was $50 is now $25. So
Mm-hmm.
you're still putting your money in it, but now you're buying it at 25. So when the market recovers, because you bought it at a discount, your account is going to grow even more.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay. And so, but people listen to the news and they look at their account and they say, oh, my account is down.
Mm-hmm.
No, we need to keep investing. And so when you're in your growth phase, a down market is actually your friend. When you're in your exit strategy phase, we now need to adjust the way you're investing because we're going to do the best job we can in avoiding significant down markets because now you're in your protection stage. So you're an athlete, right?
Yes.
So in the early game, you want to score as many points as possible.
Right.
That's your growth phase. But at the end of the game, when you've got the lead, you're now trying to protect the lead.
Right.
That's your exit strategy phase. And so you need to be working with somebody who can help you navigate both.
Right. And I gotta now I have to ask you because we are in the election year and I'm not gonna ask you who you're voting for at all. But I do want to know what your thoughts are when it comes to the financial plans that they have laid out because they're politicians and they all want
Mhm.
your vote. And there's actually been several people even on this show that said, '08 when everything crashed, that all of a sudden they lost money and things went astray. But you're basically saying, hey, sometimes when things are going out, because it can be confusing for consumers, right? When things are going down, you're saying, hey, that's actually an opportunity for you to jump in. So can you elaborate just a little bit on that?
So I got my investment license in 2008. And my
Mm-hmm.
very first client I inherited because her agent passed away. She came to me, she took $300,000 out of her account. And,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a new agent, and I'm looking like, man, lady, I just took over your account. You took $300,000 out. But she taught me something.
Uh,
What was down in 2008? Housing. She went and bought about 4 properties with
wow.
that $300,000. Now, each of those properties are worth over 700,000
Wow.
individually. Okay.
You can't see. I'm getting goosebumps here. I mean, I love that story. That is amazing because again, you took the risk and it proves your point. And a
Mhm.
lot of people would look at that time and say, "Hey, that was a terrible time for me because things crashed." But you just clearly debunked that entire myth.
Right. And so what happens is, did the market go down? Yeah, some people's, if you had aggressive investments, they
Hmm.
probably went down about 40%.
Right.
Okay. Now, but by the end of 2008, the stock market had recovered. And in 2009, if you had stayed in, you had made all your money back. So
Hmm.
in a year's time, you made all your money back. And then the market continued to explode and people were doubling their money over time.
Right.
All right. So that's the benefit of staying in. But what I learned from her was recession, if it did not impact you, and what do I mean? If you didn't lose your job and things like that,
Hmm.
recession is actually your friend because there's something that's going to go on a massive discount when we're in a recession. So my message to my clients is,
Got it.
will you have money to participate in the next recession? And that's my goal. I want to have you saving and investing. So
Right.
whatever the next recession is, you have money to participate. You brought up Warren Buffett.
Uh-huh.
Warren Buffett went up bought a bunch of companies at discount in 2008. He bought them because their share prices had dropped so low. He went in, okay, a couple of years ago, it was $3 billion to buy your company.
Hmm.
It's 1 billion to buy your company today. I want to buy your company today at 1 billion. And now 15 years later, those companies are worth 10, $12 billion.
Exactly, exactly. And the thing is too, and what gets me always is something that's mind-boggling about everything you're talking about is how hands-off it can be when you do it the right way. I remember actually doing a project when I was in high school. We were doing the Great Depression. He had us do a
Okay.
project, and he had us look at the stock market. And he told us when I was a freshman year in high school, he said, "If you guys learn this, you'll make more money than anybody in the world because the hands-off approach." So when you're talking about the system of it, and you draw, like you mentioned, you drew the comparison to insurance. How do we make sure the system is in a place where you can be hands off and you could focus on your family and it's not sucking up too much of your time, and know that your investments are actually making, so you can go on that vacation, you can go on that wherever it is you want to go, and know, hey, I'm just going to check my phone, it's making, cool. I don't got employees, I got to deal with customers, I got to deal with clients. Like what's your, I guess the question was, what is the way that you're able to establish that system where you just look at something real quick and you're able to move on?
Well, for me, so for the average person that
Yeah.
doesn't want to take the time to learn it, you pick an advisor that you like and that you
Mhm.
trust, and then you watch them work. Your advisor is kind of like a chef. They're
Yeah.
going to come in the kitchen, they're going to design a meal for you, and then you taste the meal over time, and then you watch how they work. And if you like how they're working, you like how your money is growing, then
Mhm.
okay, cool. What I always tell people is this: just look up your guys' licenses, right? I meet a lot of people that are getting all their financial advice from guys who only have a life insurance license,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's
that's
cool.
why I brought it up, because
Yeah.
we did have a previous guest. Shout out to my boy Brandon, who he runs a company named Wisdom Financial, and he was talking about how life insurance works, and he ran his own business. And again, there's no right or wrong way; it's all based on where you want to spend your money. But it's always interesting to see how different people's philosophies and different people's systems work for them, and that is so important for you as listeners to grasp. No one's telling you how to spend your money, but you do need to make sure you figure out a system. Like you said, find a coach, watch them work, and what's going to work for the things that are important for you.
And also, listen, it's okay to get a comparison. I
Yeah.
meet people all the time and say, well, I've got somebody. Great. I'm
Yeah.
happy with it. Great. But you're happy compared to what? So, like, if I were to ask you a question,
Hmm.
who makes the best burger? If you only ever ate McDonald's burger,
Yeah.
you would say McDonald's makes the best burger.
Right.
But I take you to Longhorn Steakhouse and you're like, man, where did this burger come from? It's great.
Yeah.
McDonald's
Yeah.
tastes the best until you compare it.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay. So I always advise people, even my own class, hey, you can compare what I'm doing. Then
Yeah.
once you compare, we can come back, we can have a conversation because sometimes the comparison, there might be some things that misunderstood. But
Yeah.
always compare what you're doing, you know, ask a lot of questions.
Yeah, that
Okay.
that that is beyond important, and it really boils down to how much do you really care, guys. You have to be, and every time, every single time this topic gets brought up, you're gonna continuously hear me repeat myself when I say you have got to care about somebody other than yourself. You have to be incredibly selfless. I mean, there's been countless people that have been on here and they've talked about how they've gone completely broke, made millions, that made all the money in the world, and they lost it all because they spent the money on selfish shit. So it's important that you really care about what exactly you're putting out there, what's going to be around when you're gone. And the example that you shared in terms of you fell asleep on the wheel and boom, focus them right up, because hey, God forbid something happens, and what's my wife going to do? What's my kids going to do? What's going to be the situation if I'm not here? And I can't stress the importance of that. So all that being said, I do want to be very respectful of your time. Can you just talk to people like, how do you see this thing growing for you? What's next? What's coming down the pipeline? Just kind of walk us through what you envision for the future.
So what I envision for the future. So what I'm looking to my business, I'm really looking to grow my advisory business from an investment standpoint. So I'm
Mhm.
working with some companies to actually be the manager over their 401ks, you
Hmm.
know, working with individuals, still sitting with clients one-on-one to handle their personal.
I just have to stop you there because you
Mhm.
brought up 401ks, and I have to ask about it because
Okay. Okay.
it's a very important part. I was actually in Miami right there in Cutler Bay, working out every morning like I do in LA Fitness, and there was this lady who was struggling. Like, she's like upset because they're about to open up the LA Fitness, and she doesn't know if she's gonna get her 401k after 30 years of work, and she just might not get it because the way things were, they had to take the 401k and all that. So can you just talk a little bit about what the 401k is, what people should be asking when they take that job, and how it gets offered and all that? So
Okay, great question. So I've never heard of a 401k that doesn't get released to the person because it's yours,
yeah.
right? So it's not like a job. It's not like a company pension. You contribute to the 401k.
Well, I think it was that she's not going to get as much, or the percentage wasn't what she expected. So
Oh, okay.
might have
Okay.
been a situation. I was just kind of overhearing, and I saw the look on her face, and she was genuinely worried about having to work another year to get the full amount of something like that. So
Okay.
that's what it made me think, like that 401k thing. There's some don't feel right about some don't feel right about it, right?
So, all right. So there's a misconception about 401k. So the 401k is a job sponsored retirement plan. It
Mm-hmm.
gives you the highest limits to put money away for your future. The company can match if they choose to. So if you put in 5%, the company can say they'll put in 5%. So
Mm-hmm.
you're getting 5% free money. Okay, given to you every time that you put in. The
Mm-hmm.
money's invested. They're going to have mutual funds and stocks and other things inside of there. So you're going to have to figure out a system on how you want to invest your money inside of the 401k.
Mm-hmm.
And money grows when you retire or when you separate from service of that company, you can take your 401k with you. You can put it into your new company, you can put it into a individual retirement account,
I got
or you can just, handle it however you see fit. It's your money.
I got you. I got you. Makes sense now. Makes sense.
All right.
Thanks for clearing that up. But like I said,
No.
you were telling me what's next and what you plan on doing.
So what's next for me is, like I said, 99% of my business is individuals. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking to get into companies. I'm doing financial planning workshops. I'd say briefly, like my wife passed away February 16th of 2023. And so one thing I'm looking forward is I've actually looking to start a podcast and I'm still figuring out the name of it because what I've learned in my grief journey
Mm-hmm.
is that there are a lot of people, especially with spouses, that are still stuck. It's as if their significant other passed away yesterday and they've been gone 10, 15 years. And so one thing I'm really pushing myself to be is not be stuck. So part of my podcast is going to be just like, what's next for you? And have people just come on and tell their story. And I'm thinking more of, okay, this is who you were. That's your beginning story. Who are you now?
Mm-hmm.
What's next? What's your next phase? All
Mm-hmm.
right. And really just trying to, and it doesn't have to deal with grief, but what I'm finding is people are having hardships
Right.
and they're staying stuck in their hardships. They're not advancing.
Mm-hmm.
And in life, we all gonna have hardships.
Right.
But the key is how do I advance despite this pain?
Mm-hmm.
So I really want to encourage people to advance despite their pain. And then also, I love the fact that you're a brother, you have a podcast, because I want to give society more of a positive image of Black men.
Mm-hmm.
Because if there's any group of people that's getting beat down in all of the media, everything you see almost no positive images of Black men.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to bring on people that are successful family men,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and just highlight that to give the young kids in our schools and whatnot, to just give people a better image of this is what your future can be. It doesn't have to be all those things you see on the rap music and all that other stuff. There's more.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what's next for me, my financial services business, but then also just helping people figure out what's next and showing a better image for Black men.
Well, first of all, condolences about your wife. I know that that is definitely not something that is easy to get through. So, and even if you are a listener, losing a spouse is something I can't even pretend to know what you're going through when it comes to that. But at the same time, I'm sure wherever she's looking down, he or she is looking down, and they're honored with the work that you're doing. So that's important that I just have to mention that. And when it comes to the images of Black men being financially resourceful, I can't tell you, brother, how much it's rewarding for me to hear you say that. Because as a person that grew up in the sports world, idolizing, I mean, I knew every posters all over my wall, all of the players, man, I knew it all. And to hear, and we're recording this, by the way, we're recording this late August, and it just came out that, and I hate to bring his name up, but Cam Newton has 8 kids, and there was all this I mean, someone like him who has made millions of dollars has 8 kids with 3 different women, and he's basically bragging about it. You're right, based on even when, because I know Cam Newton's story when it comes to his father, what his father did for him. we need to step up when it comes to our image. We need to step up and not just be these athletes and these entertainers, because if you look on TV, they're not being responsible with their money. Now, I'm not making a generalization here. I'm talking about several of them that have massive, massive followings that are not doing the things responsibly. So the people in the communities, the people that you have access to, those are going to be the ones that are going to help you in ways when you're, again, 99% of you guys are not going to be good enough to be Tyreek Hill. You're not going to be good enough to be Cam Newton. So I'm just telling you now, it's not going to happen. It's going to be those people that are filling the gaps in that community that really, really push us forward, and not these athletes or these rappers that we spend so much time idolizing. So, please, can you tell people how they can get in touch with you? And, when it comes to if they want to work with you further, maybe they want to have you come in and speak. Maybe there's a coach listening in that has has young players that want to just have you talk, kind of tell people how where do you normally send people?
Okay, great question. So you can find me. My Instagram is Dad Widower Boss. That is my Instagram. You can email me at Lecounte, LECOUNTE, financial at gmail.com. And you can always reach me on my telephone number at 305-788-7316.
Excellent, excellent. And that will be included in the show notes as well. So, Cornelius, the final thing I do to close out all the shows is I want you to use your imagination a little bit. Where were you, in Miami? You were driving, you fell asleep on the wheel. I want you to go back to that. Was it in Miami, actually?
Yes, it was in
Yeah,
Miami.
yeah, Miami. You fell asleep on the wheel. You got kids. I want you to go pretend that version of Cornelius has come into the Zoom room. Give him some words of encouragement, and we will officially close.
So my words of encouragement to that, Cornelius, is just keep pushing. It gets better. As long as you don't quit, set your goals, stay focused. Life isn't about where you are, it's about where you're going. It gets better.
The mic officially drops with that one, man. Thank you again. Thank you for what you got going on. Thank you for coming on. Looking forward to continually building this relationship, man. Happy we crossed paths. And everyone out there, man, listen, this stuff is important. There's no avoiding it. You really got to lock into where you're putting your money, who is advising you, and make sure you're not just sticking to one specific thing, because this world is so damn unpredictable. The only thing that is guaranteed is change. So if you're not doing the legwork, if you're not doing the little things, don't be surprised when things come up on you that are unexpected and you're not prepared to deal with it. So I'll leave it at that. Fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.
All right. Thank you.